Recall the most emotionally steady person you know, someone who stays composed during chaos. Imagine handling a last minute work emergency with that same calm clarity while your colleagues panic around you. How would such composed responses change your relationships, work, and happiness? This emotional regulation isn't reserved for the naturally calm. Today, we're exploring science backed practices that enable exceptional emotional control under pressure. These techniques can transform your relationship with stress, whether you're typically anxious or already fairly steady. They offer a pathway to an inner peace that few people discover but anyone can develop. The modern crisis of inner chaos. How often do you find yourself lying awake at night, mind racing with worries, while that one friend of yours seems perpetually unfazed by life's challenges? You know the one. They respond to bad news with a thoughtful pause rather than panic, navigate conflicts with steady composure, and somehow maintain perspective when everyone else is breaking down. Most of us today experience a constant state of emotional reactivity that feels normal, simply because it's common. Research shows the average person has between 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day, with a surprising percentage being negative and repetitive, creating mental patterns that leave us cycling through the same worries and ruminations. This overwhelming thought volume creates an internal state resembling chaos more than clarity. This internal chaos actively harms our ability to function well. Studies from the University of California reveals chronic stress reduces prefrontal cortex function by up to 30%, impairing rational decision making precisely when we need clear thinking the most. The brain region responsible for emotional regulation becomes compromised by the emotions it's meant to regulate. Now, this triggers a downward spiral. Modern life has created a perfect storm for emotional dysregulation through constant digital connectivity. The average person checks their phone 96 times daily, once every 10 minutes, fragmenting attention and preventing necessary mental rest periods. Combined with competing expectations from work, family, and social spheres, we find ourselves unable to feel centered in any area of life. The consequences extend beyond momentary discomfort. Harvard Medical School research links chronic emotional reactivity to higher rates of cardiovascular disease, weakened immunity, and accelerated cellular aging. Additionally, our relationships suffer from impulsive communications while career progress stalls as stress hormones impair creative thinking and strategic decision making. Consider Mark. He's a financial analyst whose panic attacks during a routine presentation forces him to reevaluate his relationship with stress. Now, this shows how chronic reactivity eventually reaches a breaking point. Similarly, Sarah, a mother of three, finds herself snapping at her children over minor issues, creating a home environment contrary to her intentions. These personal experiences reflect the research findings with clarity, often coming only after significant damage has occurred. Here's the paradox of our time. While experiencing unprecedented external comfort, safer living conditions, greater material abundance than any previous generations, internal suffering has reached historic highs, with anxiety disorders affecting over 30% of the adult population. Now, what if this struggle isn't inevitable? Research in neuroplasticity confirms emotionally regulated people aren't born different. They've developed specific neural pathways through consistent practice. Their brains have physically changed to support emotional regulation, and these same changes are available to anyone willing to follow similar practices. Let's explore what actually happens in the brains of emotionally regulated people and how modern neuroscience has finally caught up to ancient philosophical wisdom. The neuroscience of exceptional calm. Have you ever wondered if the calm person you admire has the same neurological responses to stress as you do, or if their brain is fundamentally different? Now, this question takes us into the fascinating world of neuroscience, where we can now observe what actually happens inside the brain during emotional challenges. Now, the brain structures most relevant to emotional regulation form a regulatory system. The prefrontal cortex, located right behind your forehead, acts as the rational executive center. Think of it as the control tower at a very busy airport. It's redirecting traffic and making key decisions. Now, the amygdala serves as your emotional alarm system, constantly scanning for threats. Now, these two regions communicate constantly with each other, creating the balance between reason and emotion that defines your stress response. Research shows that in the initial moments of stress, the brains of highly regulated individuals activate similarly to everyone else. The amygdala activates, stress hormones flow, the heart rate increases. The key difference emerges in the recovery phase. While most people's emotional systems remain activated for extended periods, the regulated person's brain quickly returns to baseline. Now, this recovery speed separates the emotionally regulated from the reactive. Vagal tone, measurable through heart rate variability, marks this regulation capacity. It functions as a biological braking system for emotions. Higher vagal tone means more efficient emotional recovery. This physiological measure can be strengthened like a muscle, creating measurable improvements in your ability to recover from triggers. Brain imaging studies reveal that emotionally regulated individuals show stronger neural connections between the prefrontal cortex and amygdala. This enhanced communication pathway allows the rational brain to effectively calm the emotional center, explaining why some people acknowledge emotions without being overwhelmed. Every person has an emotional regulation threshold, the point where regulatory systems become overwhelmed. This threshold can systematically be raised through practice. What once triggered an emotional flood for you can become manageable. Your capacity expands, allowing you to handle increasingly challenging situations with a lot more composure. Now, the University of Wisconsin studied experienced mediators exposed to stress-inducing stimuli. Now, these mediators showed normal initial amygdala activity but returned to baseline significantly faster than their control groups. Their physiological markers stabilized more quickly too. Importantly, these results came from consistent daily meditation practice, something accessible to anyone willing to commit. Longitudinal studies provide compelling evidence that emotional regulation is a learnable skill, not an innate trait. Research tracking participants over years shows significant improvement through consistent practice. The brain's neuroplasticity allows these pathways to strengthen over time, much like physical exercise builds muscle. While modern neuroscience offers valuable insight into emotional regulation mechanics, ancient philosophical traditions developed sophisticated frameworks for cultivating inner peace long before brain scans even existed. So let's look at ancient wisdom for our modern minds. What if the most powerful tools for emotional mastery were developed thousands of years ago by philosophers who recognized the same human struggles we face today? The wisdom that could transform your response to stress might not be found in the latest psychology textbook, but in ancient texts that have stood the test of centuries. Stoicism and Zen Buddhism emerged in different parts of the world, ancient Greece and East Asia, yet arrived at remarkably similar insights about emotional regulation. They developed practical frameworks for cultivating inner strength that address the same psychological challenges modern neuroscience has only recently begun to even understand. Like timeless blueprints for the mind, these traditions mapped the architecture of the human experience through careful observation across multiple generations. The Stoics identified the dichotomy of control, which is a term for a profound distinction between what we can influence and what we cannot. Now, this concept teaches us to focus our energies on what lies within our control, our judgments and actions, while accepting with equanimity what we cannot control. This single distinction creates immediate relief from suffering by redirecting our attention towards productive action. Zen thoughts offer a complementary approach through non-attachment. This creates psychological space between stimulus and response. When something happens, we gain a moment of clarity before reacting. We see that our thoughts and emotions are mental events we experience rather than absolute truths controlling our behavior. This space is where our freedom to choose lies. The Stoic practice of amor fati, love of fate, parallels the Zen concept of radical acceptance. Both teach that embracing reality increases our effective power. The Stoic accepts what is and works within the material at hand, while the Zen practitioners cultivate acceptance of the present moment without any judgment. Consider Marcus Aurelius, 2000 years back, who applied these principles during Rome's darkest hours. As emperor during war and plague, he wrote in his book called The Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Now realize this and you will find strength. Each night he reflected on the day's challenges, applying Stoic practices to maintain his resolve while facing unimaginable pressure. Similarly, Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh maintained his practice during the Vietnam War, finding peace amid chaos through full presence. These philosophies remain remarkably applicable despite the centuries separating us from the originators. Stoicism offers a framework for emotional challenges by teaching us to distinguish between what we can and cannot control, transforming our relationship with stress by eliminating unnecessary suffering we put ourselves through. Now let's explore how to integrate these neurological insights and philosophical principles into practical techniques you can begin implementing today. The wisdom of these traditions becomes truly valuable when applied consistently, creating new patterns of response that build the neural architecture of calm. Practical pathways to lasting peace. What if you could develop the emotional stability of the calmest person you know through specific daily practices that will take less than 15 minutes per day? Now, this isn't wishful thinking. The capacity for exceptional calm can be systematically developed by focusing on three essential domains: mindfulness training, cognitive reframing, and physiological regulation. Each addresses a different aspect of emotional balance and creates a comprehensive approach to your lasting peace. Ever wonder how these practices might transform your life over time? Let's explore each brick in building your emotional resilience structure. Most people try to improve emotional regulation through willpower alone, forcing themselves to stay calm during challenges. Research shows this approach often backfires under stress. Willpower depletes quickly, leaving us vulnerable when regulation matters the most. Instead, build the neural architecture supporting regulation before challenges arise in your life. Mindfulness strengthens connections between your prefrontal cortex and amygdala, and it enhances communication between the rational and emotional brain centers. Try this. Focus on your breath for 5 minutes daily. Now notice when your mind wanders. Gently return to breathing. Attach this practice to your morning coffee or toothbrushing routine. Consistency transforms brain connectivity more effectively than occasional longer sessions. Cognitive reframing offers another cornerstone for your emotional stability. The Stoic practice of negative visualization involves briefly imagining losing something valuable: health, relationships, positions. This practice simultaneously builds resilience for potential setbacks while deepening appreciation for what you currently have. It breaks the hedonic treadmill where we constantly seek more without appreciating what we have. Physiological regulation directly impacts your vagal tone, the biological foundation of stability. Breathe in for 4 counts and extend your exhale to 6 or 8. So what you're doing is you're just breathing in for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now extend your exhale to 6 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this activates your parasympathetic nervous system within 90 seconds. Practice during daily transitions, before meetings, at stoplights, or while waiting in line. Trigger planning addresses specific emotional vulnerabilities. Identify situations that typically trigger strong reactions within you. Now develop response plans before encountering them again. This creates new neural pathways, rewiring your brain to react differently to familiar stressors. Integrating them makes these practices sustainable. During your commute, plan for your triggers. While waiting for appointments, practice breathing techniques. Before bed, spend 2 minutes in negative visualization, but always followed by gratitude. True calm isn't freedom from storms, but remaining centered within them. This capacity strengthens with each practice session, transforming reactive patterns into responsive choices. Your improved regulation benefits not only you, but everyone you interact with, creating positive ripple effects throughout your relationships. When integrated into a unified system aligned within your deepest priorities, these practices become both easier and more meaningful, allowing your mind to focus on what truly matters. So, in conclusion, the path toward emotional regulation isn't about eliminating feelings or reaching perfect peace. It's about building the capacity to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Each practice strengthens the neural pathways that support calm, gradually transforming what once seemed impossible into your natural response. When your mind clutters with competing priorities, emotional balance suffers. Now, my one-page life clarity system can help you distill multiple purposes into a single powerful page, creating that clarity which supports emotional stability. Now, this could radically decrease stressors in your life and thoughts of anxiety because you have your entire life mapped on a page. This journey unfolds reframe thoughts and conscious choices, like building a sturdy lighthouse that guides you safely through life's stormiest waters. So, if you're interested to know more, you can look up logicalretreat.com and let's dive deeper. Thank you.